turbulent, torrid tale of the terrible toxic tick. Once upon a time in the magical kingdom of Nod, there lived a terrible toxic tick, also known as Lori. She was a person with vast, cavernous insecurities, who would carefully script every interaction so that she was the one up. She speaks, you listen. She instructs, you learn. She commands, you obey. The thing was that she was a co-worker, not a manager in any way. She had this skill, though, of bending management to her will, and thus became known as the Alabama Tick from the movie Predator, where Jesse Ventura says bad guys are dug in deeper than an Alabama tick because no one could get to them yet. The tick used a protected status as a sword and shield. Whenever she would cross the line, she'd threaten to sue, and it would go away. If you looked at her wrong, she was filing a complaint against you. At one point she'd put in for a promotion, but a friend of mine on the board mentioned that she was a piece of human She particularly loved reporting people to management for taking a 16-minute coffee break or a 46-minute lunch, important things like that. Then, she was moved into a position where she oversaw a particular type of paperwork, and she went on the rampage. Only if you bowed and scraped before her would your paperwork get approved. She also became known as Conan. She would berate you in public over having 3 spaces after a period, or 2 spaces after a comma. She would scream at people over the use of a colon versus a semicolon. She would play people off against each other, telling one person a lie about another, and then sit back and watch the fireworks. She would watch everyone, trying to learn some weakness that she would exploit. Another section called her the Eye of Sight. Her boss, who was overall a decent person, would always take her side out of fear of a lawsuit. She would make a dramatic entrance to the area, waving her hand dismissively, saying very loudly, "We have a problem with an employee," and then going into the supervisor's office and shutting the door. After an hour, some poor sap would get chewed out over something minor or even fictitious. A friend of mine got hammered for having sand on the floorboard of his work vehicle, and the tick accused him of going to the beach on work time. He lives by the beach and has to walk on the sand to get to the car. That supervisor moved, and a no-nonsense guy took over. She spent an hour in his office complaining about every employee who did bow and scraped her. He heard her out and then said, "Get the F out of my office and get back to work." Without her top cover, the tide had turned. My part in the story was when I was working on some important legal paperwork, and she interrupted me, saying, "Stop working on that. You're working for me from now on." I would basically be her gopher from then on in. We went round and round, until I told her that if she got a ruling from the head attorney that I would have to complete the project, so that I would be blamed when the case was lost, I would be all hers. So, the tick declared war on me. I could never get my paperwork through, and she would berate me in public for minor errors. I endured her crap for almost 2 years before the tide changed. There is a certain physical qualification for the job that we had to complete 4 times a year, and I was put in charge of that at one point. She had always been terrible at it. I went up to her at her desk and said, "So, you want to play this game? Okay, let's play this game." I stood behind her at the quals, berating her in the same way. "Are you trying to fail? What's your major malfunction?" I'd watch her flailing from the tower and call out on the piano, "All those who have failed the qualification report to the tower immediately for retraining," so that she would be the only one crawling up to the tower to get chewed out. I would walk into the office area and wave my hand dismissively and call out loudly, "We have a problem with an employee." Amazingly, her harassment stopped against me, but she then targeted others. But she finally lost it when she refused to budge on moving an important case forward, making up rules to justify her actions. She had to meet with the head of the office and became unglued, screaming at him. 5 minutes later, she was removed from her position and given clerical duties. A month later, in an all-employee meeting, we all approached her replacement and loudly declared that he had turned the department around and that he was doing a wonderful job. It was so toxic before, we said, knowing that she was right nearby at the snack table. She threw a bagel to the ground and ran out, putting in medical retirement 15 minutes later. On her final day, we had a screen set up at the exit and played the clip of the Eye of Sauron falling and being destroyed as she walked out. No one's heard from her since.